think with all the technology that it would actually catch up soon. Okay, so according to this, we are live on Facebook. So unless I see something come up otherwise, we are good to go. So welcome everybody to Monday Whispers Chat. And so I want to start off with a little bit of an introduction of what Monday Whispers Chat is all about. So my name is Rollie Allaire, and I am with Bridging the Gap Wellness. And so Bridging the Gap Wellness is all about the holistic life and finding balance. And every week during Monday Whispers Chat, we feature an amazing and inspiring woman. So in this week's Monday Whispers Chat, I am here with Heather Esposito. I'm hoping I pronounced that properly, who will be sharing about her journey to encourage women to love themselves. As a former mental health therapist, Heather struggled with depression and health issues until her early 30s, when she discovered that all of her emotional and physical issues were created by what she ate, the thoughts she chooses to focus on, wanting tools to change. Heather headed back to school and became a health coach and a natural food chef. She co-founded the country's first bakery that is gluten-free, allergen-friendly, and refined sugar-free, and was featured on the Food Network and Cooking Channel, and eventually sold her shares and returned to coaching. So after coaching for Tony Robbins for 3.5 years, Heather was frustrated with experiencing clients achieve their goals, but not being happy and satisfied in life. She then added a form of energy work called the Body Code, which releases subconscious blocks to address the 95% of us that keeps us in patterns that we don't like, our subconscious. This finally felt like the tool that tied everything together. So welcome, Heather. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely covers, it covers a lot of it, for sure. My journey is interesting because a lot of people are like, you went from food, from psychology to food, and then coaching. Like, how does that, like, they seem so, like, a lot of people are like, that they seem so different. I'm like, they actually, as you know, with holistic health, it ties in together, right? Because it's really hard to have to be able to, like, think well of yourself and to care for yourself if your, like, body's not getting the proper fuel, right? But it's hard to give yourself the proper fuel if you don't care for yourself enough to do it. So it's this, like, which comes first, the chicken and the egg, or the egg? And for me, my personal journey was, I never thought that food had anything to do with anything. And I was hypoglycemic all growing up. You know, my motto was like, I would yell at my brother all the time. A lot of people and just pick on me. And I was like, I'm going to kill you. You know, so I couldn't control myself. And it just got to the point where I got so, like, it was time. It was like, from my, I had just been doing what most people do around Christmas, eat all the sugar in the world. I'd moved back in with my parents. So, like, everything in my life just was not good. And I got to a point where I laid in bed one day for 24 hours and could not get out of bed, and thought about 5 different ways to end my life. And I was like, I don't want to live like this, but I also don't want to, like, I don't want to end my life, but I don't want to live like this. And I felt like I didn't have a choice. Like, I felt like I was, like, really stuck. And I thought about my nieces and nephews, and I was like, I don't want to leave that legacy for them. So I had read, when I was a therapist, I'd read about how sugar caused depression. So I gave myself a challenge. And I said, don't eat sugar for a week and see how you feel. And if you want to kill yourself at the end of the week, go for it. I mean, what's another week at this point, you know, when you're that miserable? And then when the week went by after not having sugar, and I was like, I could feel the fog lifting. It was like, oh my gosh, wait, there's something to this. And then that set me on the trajectory of going to school for health coaching, and then to the Natural Gourmet Institute, which is the only culinary school that focuses on food and healing. And when I told my family I was going to culinary school, they laughed because I'm the worst in the kitchen. And then because I had such a sweet tooth, and I can't do gluten and dairy and refined sugar. I was like, well, I need to make stuff I could eat. So that's how the bakery happened. And then it just kind of all just kind of everything built on each other. And so I get to be able to use all of those things, the therapy skills, the health coaching skills, like regular coaching skills, you know, into working with people, but there still felt like there was something missing. And so like, you know, like as you know, working with little, sometimes, for example, right? Sometimes it can like, you know, do what I did and give like, you know, a week of not having it, but we eventually go back, right? And so what I learned with my friend had introduced me to this form of energy work, and it's like, it just clears the patterns that are like trapped inside of us. And so I get to use that with like, I had a client who was she was bottle fed Dr. Pepper, like bottle fed it. And she was, when we were working together, she was 56 years old. So she had been drinking this her whole entire life, couldn't get off of it. And so we, you know, we did the health coaching thing, have more water, more greens, all that kind of stuff. She's like still, she was decreasing her amount, but we did some body code over it. And like, she's like, oh yeah, I haven't had any Dr. Pepper, blah, blah, blah. And just like nonchalantly said it. And I was like, wait a minute, like, what did you just say? She's like, yeah, I haven't really wanted it, you know, just like it was no big deal. And I was like, that's such a big deal. So that's, I get to see that like with the energy work. So it's just come full circle to see like, you know, all of the things, and it's really fun to be able to use all of them, because like one tool never works for everybody. Right. And so yeah, it's been really fun.
So that's really interesting. I really like how you're able to use those three things, because because that is one of the things that I've always been huge on, is that we can't just work on one area in our life without it having an impact on everything else. And although there's different areas that we are more expert in, that we actually have that we can actually work more in these different areas. So like, for example, in physical health, like that's not something that I will actually say, okay, well, like, let's do this physical program, or let's do this yoga program. It's like, I'm going to refer people to those specialties, but still in terms of working with them as their whole plan, because those are the areas that are really, really important. So I really love how you're actually able to like show how that actually comes around full circle, how you're able to take from your therapist expertise and then moving it all the way through, and where you're still able to use some of those skills. So that's actually really cool. I love that. So, and thank you very much for sharing your story. So and that's one of the things that I've noticed, that for those of us who are in the helping field, it's hard for us to be able to say, you know what, I hit rock bottom. I am supposed to be there to help people, and I've hit that bottom of the barrel, and it's okay for us to actually be able to do that, because we're human, right? So obviously we don't want to stay at that bottom of the barrel, and we want to be able to like pull ourselves back up again and use the skills that we have. Sometimes we need to reach out to others, but it's just really important for us to be able to, for others to be able to recognize that just because we're in the helping field doesn't mean that you are invincible. And that is one of the things that I see a lot in the helping field, is that those of us who are in it get stuck in that being invincible. So tell me a little bit more about some of the strategies or some of the things that you actually do. Because I know taking out sugar was one of the things that you did to be able to help you. But so tell me a little bit more about the body code stuff that you do.
Yeah. So the body code is really fascinating because it allows you to get to the like coaching and therapy is great. I mean, I'm a former therapist, and the coach is great. It deals with the stories that we have in our head, but our feelings are the language of our body, right? And so we have emotion, you don't feel full of feeling, it gets stuck inside of our body. And so like this tonight, we were, talking about self-love stuff, right? And so for women, so big, right? To we've been trained by society, right? To look at ourselves and to demean ourselves. And, to be like, I don't like my body. I don't like this. I don't like that. And where the body code comes in is like, I have specific protocols on self-love, on body love, that we work to get you 100% aligned with the vision that you have for yourself, or for whether it's your body or your self-love. And they're two separate things, right? Like, cause there are some people who are like, I love my body, but I don't necessarily love me or the things that I do, or some people are like, I love me, but man, if my body could just be different, right? So we want to have both of those. So the body code, there's the belief that there are 6 different things that cause imbalance in the body. It could be energetic, it could be within our circuits and systems, it can be within toxins or pathogens, or within our nutrition and life. And if we go under the belief that everything is energy, right? So emotions are just different frequencies, and trauma, same thing. It's all like energetic frequencies. And when we don't feel them fully, right, they all get trapped inside of our body. And when they get trapped inside their body, it's like, you imagine like a car getting like losing gas on the highway, right? And the car is just stuck there, right? Now all of the other traffic slows down and it's harder to get around it. So it's the same like with the energy in the body, like it's getting slowed down because there's this thing that's stuck there. But then what happens, right? When there's one car that gets stuck, then they all start piling up, right? And so that's what happens, within the body. And so the body code, because of the belief that everything is energy, right? The body code, they believe that everybody's conscious can connect to this. Basically, it's an app. To show you, I don't think I can't screen share on this, right?
You should be able to, I think.
See.
I don't know. I've never tried that. So.
Okay. I might be able to. Let me see if I can share. Nope. You don't need to see my text. Okay.
Yes, we can. Yay.
Let me bring this up. Make that bigger. Awesome. So you can see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So when I work with somebody, whether on whatever, like it's sugar addiction or self-love stuff, work specifically on a question, like, is there anything in the body code that's preventing, like if I would say for you, and I'm not saying that this is your thing, but just saying like, is there anything that's preventing Rollie from fully accepting herself, right? And so if I'd had permission to work on you energetically, like you give me your permission, I would work on you as proxy, meaning I would kind of step into your energetic field to work in on you. And let me preface this by saying, when all this stuff came out, like started coming out, like The Secret and all this stuff, and everybody's like, everything is energy. I'm like, these people are ridiculous. Like, this pen is just a pen. There's no energy. Like, it's so stupid. These people are ridiculous. So I thought this stuff was a load of crap. And when I had a friend who was getting certified in it, and she's like, can I work on you? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm no skin off my back. I don't have to do anything. Because she's like, I just do the work and, that's it. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But it was the first time that I actually felt, I could feel this weight in my chest lifted off. I could feel lightness in my body. And I was like, oh, I think there's something to this. So I started just exploring it. I was like, well, let me get started asking clients, can I, just work on you? And they're like, yeah. And they started seeing shifts way faster than when we were just doing coaching. So that's what's made me a believer. But I will say, and I tell everybody this all the time, is that whenever I do the work, I'm still always like, I hope this works. But it does, it does. I see it over and over again. And even like I can work on animals, and that's really fun because animals, there's no placebo effect on animals at all. The animals, you can't be like, hey, act more calm now. I know you were really anxious before, but act more calm now. Like they just change and you're like, wow, there's a difference. So when I do work, I work on proxy. So if I were to say, is there anything that's causing Rollie, that's preventing Rollie from accepting herself fully? So I would use muscle testing, which is kinesiology. And I would ask if it's yes or no. And I don't know, do you need me to explain muscle testing at all?
Maybe for other people that are on, maybe because they might not necessarily know what that is. So so somebody who's viewing may not necessarily know what that is.
Yeah, so I'll go back to that, but I want to show. So muscle testing is, the easiest way that I like to explain it is when you walk in a room and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel good, right? Or you can walk in a room and you're like, oh my gosh, this feels so good, right? Your body just tells you before you even figure it out. Like, it's like your thoughts follow your feelings, right? And so that's essentially your subconscious is already telling you how you're feeling. And so muscle testing there's lots of different ways to do it. the way that I do it is basically when your body is like strong about something, it's going to be really strong and stable. So I take my two fingers, like ring, they do this like this and put them, and they call it the ring and ring method. And so when I say my name is Heather, like it's really strong, right? But if I say my name is Susie, I can break them apart really fast, right? And I have a nephew that at the time he was like 7 or 8, and one day we were waiting for his dad. Hey, Heather, tell me a story about muscle testing. And just like most kids, he loves sugar. And when you're testing somebody in person, you can have them put their arm out and you press down, you know, and if it's a yes, like their arm will stay up, but if it's a no, like their arm will go weak. So I had him, you know, put his arm out, and I was like, say out loud, sugar is good for me. And he's like, sugar is good for me. And his arm was like, it is totally weak. He's like, no, do it again, do it again. And he's like trying to resist it, but he's like, I can't even, you know, resist it, you know, because then he was like, you know, broccoli is good for me, and his arm like wouldn't go down. He's like, no, broccoli is not good for me. So that's essentially muscle testing. So when I'm muscle testing on somebody, so again, if we go back to using you, like if I say my name is Rollie, right, I get a no because that's not my name. But do I have permission to tap into your energy field?
Yes.
Okay. So I just like have to think like, now I'm Rollie, and I say my name is Rollie, I'm going to get a solid, you know, thing apart. Yes. So I'm going to go back to the screen share and just go to, so if I say, is there anything preventing Rollie from loving herself fully and completely? Like I'm getting a no right now. So that's a good thing for you, right? But say if we were, you know, if I was working on somebody and say, and like I would just muscle test and I got a yes. So then I would say, is it on the left side or the right side? And so that like I would go over here, over here. So if I said it was on the right side, then I would ask, is it pathogens? Is it misalignments? Is it nutrition and lifestyle? So if it said it was misalignments, then I would click on this. And then I would say, again, is it the left side, the right side? And if it was like, is the right side, then I'd say, is it connective tissue? Is it glands? Is it organs? Is it systems? And it says, oh, it's organs. So then I click on the organs. And then again, the left side, the right side. Lungs that would be preventing you from loving yourself fully. And so then I asked, is the emotion in column A or column B, or left side, right side, and then just go down. And usually I usually close my eyes when I'm doing it because I don't look at the words, just because I'll just say, is it word 1, word 2, word 3? And that's how I personally do it, you know, and then it's like, say it's word, you know, 4, and they say it's sadness, say, oh, is there a trapped emotion of sadness in the lungs? And you get a yes. And then the way to release the emotion is, and this is where, again, I say this out loud and I'm like, I can't even believe I'm saying these things, that are, I'm going to stop this screen share again. Go. They're in the Chinese medicine, there's the meridians, the meridian system, right? And in acupuncture, there's meridian system. And most people have heard of meridians. And the governing meridian is a meridian that runs, basically you take your finger here and just draw a line all the way up and go down your spine and come back up again. That's your governing meridian. And that meridian sends the messages. It's like the motherboard. It sends the messages out to the other points. So when we ask if there's a trapped emotion or whatever it is that needs to be released, you can take a magnet or my fingers and just run it over the line. And the idea with the magnet is, actually I have one right here, is if, I'm not gonna do it, but if I took a magnet and run it over this credit card and, you know, run that over, it would delete the information.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do that. But when I run it over the governing meridian, right, it deletes that information, right? And so then it just transmutes and leaves the body. It's so freaking cool to see what happens because, you know, people they get stuck, you know, it's like, you get stuck and it's like, it kind of clears up that traffic jam that we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
And so it allows them to like have this space to actually be like, oh my gosh, wait, I can breathe now. And those memories that I have that were stuck in my body that were preventing me from loving myself. Oh wait, there's space. I can actually do that. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. So now one of the things that I'm curious about is that so oftentimes, because I deal with a lot of people that have past trauma, so we deal with something, and one of the things that tends to happen, we've dealt with it, it's gone away, we've dealt with all the things that need to happen, that comes up, and then 2 or 3 years later, something else has triggered it and that has come back again. Do you find that that happens? And I know that you know what it is that I'm referring to in terms of having your background in psychotherapy as well. So like, so does that happen when you're doing this with the body code? Like, how does that work?
So I think I hear what you're saying. Like, it's like you've been able to, well, let me ask first, like, in what way was it like dealt with?
So I'm just thinking, so if I've actually had somebody that we've actually done, and even now with doing, because I use a lot of energy work with clients as well. So, but I don't use the body code, but when we're actually dealing with things, then, so they've actually resolved the emotional issue. They've actually been able to move past it. They're no longer getting the side effects. So like especially if it was a traumatic event, they're not getting the flashbacks, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, how does that work in terms of using the body code?
Yeah.
Like, do you see a difference?
So I don't know, from the that I've had working with people, right? Because I don't know the tools that you've used, but what I could say, with the people that I've worked with, like I had this gentleman who was very successful, but he had challenges saying, I don't know. So even if like somebody's like, what's directions to so-and-so, he would give directions, even if he didn't know the directions, because when he was younger, he had 3 specific instances where he was able to remember on a conscious level, like these 3 experiences where he felt really stupid. And he made those decisions, right? That I'm never going to feel stupid again and never not going to know anything. So we had like just these phrases for these experiences that he had. And I just did the work on clearing like anything that's causing him to hold on to that memory. And I just kept doing the work. And then until it just comes up that no, there's nothing left to be released. So a couple of weeks later, we're talking and I'm like, hey, like what comes up when I say this statement? And he's like, oh, nothing. That was a teacher. That was a teacher issue. That had nothing to do with me. Where before, like he could barely talk to me about it, without, like there's so much emotion about it. Right.
Okay.
So it definitely just wipes the body clean of it. And also as humans. So I had a woman who we were working on abundance stuff. And we've been working together for a couple of years and have a specific abundance protocol. And we were working through that. We, went through all of it. And then a couple of years, like last year, it was like 2 years later, she's like, I'm still really struggling with this, money stuff and da, 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 da. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so let me just pull up the stuff that we did. And let me read you the statement of what we were working on before. And when I read her the statement of like what her goal was, she was like, oh yeah, that's not a big deal. Like I totally overcome that. Like I, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so is it that you're like still struggling with money or that you've hit a new glass ceiling that you want to work through? And she was like, oh yeah, I guess. All of it to work through. And so the body code, to me, my experience, it can definitely release things, but there's layers of things and life can happen where like I use the body code for motion sickness because I'm an aerialist and we spin around a lot. And my friend did like 2 sessions on me and it was like, I was totally fine to spin around. But this past like week and a half, I don't know what's happened. And I'm like experiencing motion sickness again. So I'm like, well, there's been things that have happened in my life and there could be, skeletal misalignments and all that kind of stuff. So with that, like, you never know. But with trauma, at least what I've seen with people on an emotional level, I haven't seen anybody where it's like, come back, where they're like, oh my gosh, it's the same thing. It may be. And the whole reason I said about the story about the woman is that as humans, like we forget, like we want to go back to our struggle. Right. And so we're like, oh, I'm still struggling with this. And I'm like, well, actually it doesn't sound like you're still struggling with that same thing. It's a different version of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And so that kind of talks about like the whole layers, right? So being able to, because that's one of the things that I talk with my clients about a lot, is that when we're dealing with trauma, is that we're actually dealing those layers, and that we release whatever layers. So it sounds like it's the same with the body code. So that's kind of cool. So I'm gonna have to look into the body code more.
Yeah. I love it. And especially, I was talking to someone the other day, we did the self-love protocol, and it is so funny because I have a before like pain evaluation, so you questions and rate them on a scale of 0 to 10. And then we do the after, and it's so fun to see where it was like, oh, this is super, this is 8, 9, 10. This is really intense. And then we go through and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's not a big deal. Da, da, da. And, as we're going through, she's like, this stuff really works. And I was like, I know, like, right. But I think, whatever tool it is, I love the body code personally because of the, and I'll share the screen again, just, so that people can see it another time, is the tangibleness of it. Because there's things that come up like within energetics, where it could be something like within the mental, where it is, where there's a will to die energy, like you just want to die, but you don't do anything about it. It gets trapped inside of your body, right? Or there could be something within like an image that's trapped inside your mind. And like this of somebody who's overweight. I was at a conference 2 weeks ago and a woman was talking about, she's overweight and heavy. And she's like, it's not safe because she got raped when she was younger. Her image is, I need to have this weight on to be safe. Right.
Yeah.
And so to be able to release those things, and I like it just because it's tangible. Whereas for me, I'm very logical, and I like that. Oh, there's this trapped emotion here versus like, I did some work on you. And I'm like, what the heck did you do? So for those of us who are very like, need to have something to grab onto and be like, what is that? That's why I personally love it. So.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, again, depending on the clients that I'm working with, and it depends on what energy work that I'm actually going to use, is as oftentimes those ones that need that tangible, it's the pendulum. So the pendulum will actually do the yes, no, like you're actually doing like the muscle testing. So I'll use the pendulum because then they can actually see it themselves. Right. So so it helps them to be able to see that. So that's really helpful. So now one of the things that, so when I reached out to be able to ask Heather if she would actually come on and share her knowledge, one of the things that really interests me is your book. So can you tell me a little bit about your book? So what's your book about? And
I still have my edited copy. Like I'm still waiting for my other copy, but it's called Love Yourself. And it is a 28-day journey to love the skin and life that you're in. And so this book was birthed essentially when I was working as a intensive in-home therapist. I would work with families, and the kid was the client. But if anybody who's ever worked in that field knows that the kid who's causing problems is not the problem. It is like I'm saying, there are problems in this family, and I'm the only one that's going to speak up about it. And it may look like I'm causing trouble, but like, help our family. Yeah. And so I'd have family sessions, and the mother and the father were recently married. They had a 1-year-old. So it was the 14-year-old that I was working with was her mom and stepdad. And so I was doing a couple session with them, and I had given them this assignment. They were fighting a lot. And I was like, y'all can fight. You just need to fight in your room naked with the door shut. And he was like, nope, that'll never happen. And I was like, how come? And he was like, she doesn't let me see her naked. And in my head, I was like, so I'm thinking, well, y'all are married. Like, I don't, and I'm not married. So clearly I don't get it. Right. And he's like, she just doesn't let me see her naked. And so I got on the phone with one of my best friends when I was driving home, and I was like, do you look at yourself naked? And she's like, I do, but I have a lot of friends, women that I know that would never look at naked. Started this, like, for me, is thinking about, how we look at our bodies. And for most women, won't even look at at their bodies, or if they do, they look at their bodies and, oh my gosh, I hate my stomach. Oh my gosh, I hate my arms. I hate this. I hate that. I hate this. I hate that. Right. And so, and I don't feel like it was my idea. I feel like I just got this like download of, write this book that each day we focus on a different body part, and each body part, like you spend, instead of looking for the negative things about it, find 5 good things about it. And it was interesting because the idea came to me, it was years ago. This was like, I want to say 13, 14. And I already written the book, but then it kind of like, I was like, nobody wants to hear this. Nobody needs this, all those things that come up. And then the book, the follow-up book to The Secret, The Magic, came out. I don't know. Have you ever read that one?
No.
It's essentially a 30-day gratitude process. And I was like, the heck, like this is what I'm doing. And so I was like, I have to do this. And so I just then started working on it more. And so it had a different name. We relaunched it this year with a different title. And because I really feel like it's like a letter, because it's like love, yourself. And so it's like a love letter to yourself each day that you're taking the time to look at yourself. So each day it's, like I said, focus on a different body part. Today is the 18th. So today's focus on knees, and I say today because in February, I take women through in a closed Facebook group, we go through the book together. And so each day I'll do a little share. It's been a quiet group this go around. It's been an introverted, like me kind of group this go around. But like today's just focusing on your knees, and like every time you get up, thank your knees, every time that you are, have to kneel down and, think about your knees. And when you get into that practice of, instead of like, belly's a big one for a lot of women, right? So instead of like, oh my gosh, my belly's so fat, I have this roll. Oh my gosh, like I have intestines inside of there, and I have my ovaries and my pancreas and my kidneys. Like, wow, like all these things are happening. I don't even have to think about it, right? It shifts our perspective. Something, gratitude is just the language that can put us into a place of love, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea behind the book.
That's really cool. And one of the things that I really like that you actually said is that whole piece about being introverted, right? So this group that you're actually working in right now is more introverted. And so we're always having this expectation that we need to, if we're not taking in the same if we are not being extroverted, right? So I am very vocal. I am very, for the most part, there's some things that I do that I'm not, that I keep a little bit more introverted, but that has been a lifelong learning that I've actually learned that in order for me to process, I need to process out loud, right? So that helps me process, that helps me think things through. And so, and learning to be okay with that is, because it's like, are these people going to think that I'm crazy? Right. So like, I need to be more extroverted in order for me to be able to process things without worrying about whether or not people are going to think that I'm crazy. So, and some people probably do think that I'm crazy. Yeah, that's okay. But that's okay. But one of the things that you said that I think that is really, really important for us to be able to talk more about is that you said that introverted, right? So introverted like you is, so can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, yeah, like most people don't think that I'm introvert because I can do stuff like this, and they're like, you're good at it, and but I was the kid who literally, I used to run away from my family when they sang happy birthday to me. Like I was that shy. And I don't know, it was high school or college, I can't remember, but I remember having a thought of like, you know what, like I don't want to be afraid of everything my whole life. And so I started to do things that I was afraid of. And in doing that, like I learned to do public speaking, and I volunteered for this organization for high school kids. And I mean, get over like caring about what people think about you, and public speaking, high school kids, because they are the judgiest judgers of all. Okay?
They are.
Just want to be like, I don't know if I like you. And so I did that, and that really helped. But I recharged so much by being alone, being by myself, just shutting off all the lights. And so for me, online stuff can be really daunting and hard. So like running this group, it's people are like, will write down like what they're grateful for. And I feel this pressure that I have to respond with some witty comment back to every single person's thing. And then I'm just like, ugh. And all the energy drains out of me. And so like this go around, I was like, y'all, I'm like, I read every single one of them. I'm like, please, no, like I can't, I just am not smart enough to respond back. Like every single one and be like, blah, 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 and have something great. We're like, one of my best friends, it's funny because she's an introvert too, but she thrives online. But I know for me, I've had to really appreciate the fact, like going back to the whole loving yourself, like you talked about, like, being an extrovert, saying like that's okay for me, that like that I'm not like a rah like kind of girl, and I used to work for a very well-known coach or like person in the world of personal development, and everything was like just be in peak state and scream yes and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, nope, like that's not peak state for me. Like peak state for me is more putting my hand on my heart, taking a deep breath in, like, and getting centered and grounded, like, and that fills me up. Going inward, like, fills me up so much more than like going out, and like learning to love and accept that part of myself. And is like the world of personal development where it seems like you just have to be like, ah, and I'm like, yeah, not gonna be me. I just can't do it. I can't. And so it's like, I do this group, and I crack myself up sometimes because I'll do these Facebook lives every day, and I shut the camera off, and I'm like, am I ever going to say anything smart? Like, I feel like I'm saying the same thing, but people say it's helpful. So I just keep showing up.
And that's the thing, is that we don't necessarily know what it is that's helpful to other people, right? So one of the things that we did over the last 4 weeks is that we did a contest for our women's conference, and the purpose of the contest was, in order to be able to get entered into the draw, is being able to share who it is that you inspired you and what is it that they inspired you doing. And the reason for that is that because oftentimes we don't think that we're inspiring, right? We don't think that that is something that somebody else is going to think was inspiring. We just do it because it's part of who we are, and where we're at, and what it is that's going on. And then we have like these mind gremlins that go on, that just kind of take over, and we struggle with. So like one of the things that you said is like, well, I don't know if that was very smart. Like, am I ever going to say anything smart? Whereas, and other people are telling you that, no, hey, I love listening to what it is that you have to say. Mm-hmm. I love reading the things that you do. I love reading, being able to hear what it is that you have to say. And you're like, but it's just because, right? Like, I didn't say anything that I thought that was like over the top, but something else that you said or did really touches someone else. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the purposes for the Monday Whispers chat, is to be able to bring people in like you who are willing to step into that little bit of being uncomfortable, of being able to share what is it that what knowledge that you have, what it is that you have to be able to offer people, because like there's something out there for everyone, and to be able to try and figure out who, what, where, and how. And that one little piece of information that you shared today may be something that may have triggered someone else to be able to say, hey, that might work for me. I've been struggling with this for so long. That might work for me.
Yeah.
And, but yet the last person that talked about it wasn't somebody who they can connect with. And so that is one of the reasons why I love being able to do this, even with the glitchy tech stuff that's going on. It drives me crazy. It's like a couple of times you were frozen, and I'm like, ah! So I've learned to be able to go like, no, that's okay. Whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen. And for a type A personality, that is really that's really difficult to do. But I've learned to be able to just go like, no, like the information that needs to be out there will go out there. And the glitchy techno stuff will eventually resolve itself, cross my fingers,
Yep.
that it will be easier.
Mhm.
But it's that showing up, right? So every week showing up regardless of what it is that's going on. And in your case, it's showing up every day for 28 days.
28 days.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so fun seeing the stories, you know, because like you said, you never know who's in the background. Like I'm a lurker when it comes to most Facebook stuff, you know, I'm just like, there's some groups that I'll participate more fully in, but like, you know, that's why I say to my people, I'm like, I'm totally fine. Like, cause I know that stuff is still happening. And like, I had somebody, I know from a networking group that she was like, Heather, she's like, I gotta be honest with you, I only read one day of your book so far, but there was the first day about hair, but she's like, but it's interesting because I've been wearing much more than I ever did before because I would just hated my hair, but I've started to wear it down. And it, I mean, it sounds so silly, right? But like, it's just such a minor thing that just shifted how she's looked at herself. And you know, when we just make the intention to choose to see something different, right? It's part of that. You have to work the conscious level stuff with the energetic stuff. You know, you can't just be like, oh, just do energy work on me. No, you got to participate in your rescue here. You got to help, right? But you can't also just plow your way through it. Sometimes it's like, okay, you know what? You just need to rest. Let's clear some of this trauma out from your past. So it's a both and you know, loving yourself is, you know, it's a journey. Like, I'm sure, you know, like for you, for me, like every day it's like, okay, I have to make this choice. And do we fall into the, like, we look in the mirror and we're like, oh, but then we just, wait a minute. Oh yeah, catch that. Yeah. Let me change that, you know, and builds the muscle and builds the muscle and builds the muscle. To, you know, to where we can say, oh, like, you know what, my stomach's not what I want it to be right now, you know, but I love it because I love that everything that it's done for me. So I'm going to make some choices that are going to help it to get to where I want it to be.
Yeah.
Right? And that's such a different come from than I have to lose weight in order to love myself. Right?
Yeah. And we're at different levels at different points in our lives, but also throughout the day, right? So one of the things that I thought that was really interesting was that when you did the muscle testing for me and you're like, is there anything? And I'm like, I'm expecting something to happen. And you're like, I just got to know. I just got to know. Like, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess right now in this particular moment, as Heather's stepping in, I'm good. But like, ask me this morning, ask me later on tonight, and who knows, right? Yeah. So we are on this journey, and it is ups and downs, it is ebbs and flows, and that is something that's really important for us to be able to remember, is that, so in this moment when you're not liking this one particular part of yourself, is that you've got another part of yourself that you need to take a look at. And maybe today, for right now in this moment, things are good, and maybe for right now in this moment, things are not. So there's all those ebbs and flows and ups and downs, and that's incredible. So so what kind of things, for those people who are catching the replay, what kind of things can people, how can people reach you? What can they do to be able to work with you? How do they get in touch with your book? What are some of the things that, that you would like to share?
So the book is on Amazon. So it's, again, it's Love Yourself, which I know it's showing up backwards and will not come with this gray line. It's my version is taking forever to get here. Like when you order for, like, as the author, for some reason it doesn't come in Amazon Prime, so it's taking forever. But yeah, so you can go to Amazon. It's on Kindle and on you know, paperback. And even if you don't have Kindle, there's a free Kindle app that you can get. A lot of people don't realize that. And my website is Heather E, as in Esposito, or energy is another easy way to think of it, heathere.com. I am on Facebook and on Instagram. On Instagram, it's Heather_M_Esposito. And on Facebook, I think you have the links popped up somewhere. I forget what the names are on there.
So is it just, your website is just Heather E?
I have an Instagram than I am on Facebook, but sometimes it changes.
Sorry, Heather, did you say that your website was heathere.com?
E.com. Yep.
Okay, so heathere.com. So I just put that one in there because I don't think that I had that email. And I'm sure that it was in the application. But like I said, I actually have somebody else that's looking after some of these things now. So, which is actually really cool.
Yes, that is cool.
Loving it.
Congratulations.
So, yep, the website part came up. And so I will put up the Facebook one. And then if you want to go in later and share any others, then that would be good. So I've put your Facebook one and your website. So if there's anything else that you want to be able to add into there, I know that you had talked about your Instagram and that kind of thing, but and I'm not sure if it's coming up, but it should. Okay, so is there anything else that you think that would be important for people to know that we've missed, that we haven't talked about?
I mean, I feel like we could talk for a long time, right? About loving yourself. And I really would just invite people as we wrap up to think about when you think about like, I can't love myself because, and like, what are the stories and the thoughts that come up, right? And to ask yourself, like, whose voice is saying that? Because more often than not, it's not our own voice. The original voice was not our own voice, right? It was a parent, it was a sibling, it was, a bully in school. And so just check in and like find whose voice is that's preventing me, from loving myself. And then ask, is this something that I can just make a choice and say, wait a minute, that's just silly. I can just think differently. And sometimes it's that easy. And some people, sometimes you can with certain things because we're like, oh, that's not even true. I don't want to. But then other times, you have to ask yourself, okay, if it's not something that I can change my thoughts about, where do I feel it in my body? And if this is something that's more trapped in my body, what are some ways that I can go about, getting this removed from my body? Okay. I know what I do with the body code works, the tools that you use work. So, say, what can I do to address this? And the great thing about the energy work, is that they're not the ones who have to do the work, right? Like, they're just like, I just want to get rid of it. And it's like, okay, we'll do the work. So it's just, when you think about loving yourself, just ask yourself first, what are the stories that are stopping you from being in that place? Because, as I've said, like, from being the girl who ran away from her family singing happy birthday, and being so incredibly shy, and I mean, to being, I've been on national TV multiple times and stuff. And, I wake up every day and I'm like, I love myself. I love my body. There are days trust me, there are days, when I'm like, I was more introverted, or I wish there's more of this, but the overall, is more of like, wow, I really do love myself. But it takes work to get there.
It does. And it's not just a one day fix it, right? So it's not just a one thing. And that's one of the things that I often see with people is that, and even some of the advertising that are out there, right? So it's like, oh, come with me and I can fix you and everything will be great. And that drives me crazy. Or like, you know what, join me and like your life is going to be fantastic. And it's like, yeah. There's a little bit behind that story that we need to be taking a look at, right? So I like working with people who keep it real, right? So like you said, it's not a fix it. You still have to do some work. I'm going to do some energy work, but it's not just going to fix everything, and everything's not just going to go away. And it's not, and today I love myself, tomorrow I don't. Because we're human, we have all these emotions, we have these different things that are going on, we have these, and I really like the fact that that you're forthcoming in terms of like that being that we're human.
I know,
right?
it's like, why not? I don't know. I don't understand when people, I can't get it,
You and me both. And that's why I wanted to be able to acknowledge that, because I think that that's super important for us to be able to being able to keep it real. And I like the fact that we actually work with Allison, who is that, and that's what it is. It's about being able to keep it real. And that's who I am. So like I said, it took me a long time to be able to deal with the whole type A stuff around the technology stuff. And it's like, it's good. And whatever needs to happen is going to happen. Whatever little glitchy things happen, well, we'll just work through the glitch. And I definitely owe that thanks to Allison. So, because that is one of the things that she definitely really does about being able to keep it real. So
yeah, awesome. So, yeah, thank you for this. It was really fun talking to you.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. So, so for those of you, so if there's any links that I've missed, Heather, feel free to be able to come back. Any of you who are catching the replay. So I know that Carol will be hopping back on later on tonight. She is my faithful who comes on every week to actually watch our lives, but she always catches them on the replay, usually early in the morning. So really, so when you hop on, Carol, hashtag replay like you usually do, and one of us will hop back on. But really enjoyed doing this, and thanks so much for that.
Thank you.
And